For a long time, the thing that I remembered most about Nigeria was my mom raising all three of us, the three Usman boys. I couldn't really remember my dad for the most part. It's very hard when you're growing up like that. It's very hard to forget the way that the whole village raised us. Of course, when we needed food, we grew food. We grew tomatoes, we grew crops, things of that nature. So that was a part of how we were surviving. But also, my mother was a teacher. And on top of that, we owned a convenience store, which we sold pretty much everything. My mom was an ultimate hustler while my dad was gone. And I didn't understand that for the most part, why my dad wasn't there. But then when my dad came back, and I remember it was such a big deal to just everyone in the village, I'm like, oh, that's my dad.
I came here actually to further my education. I was here for 7 years. While I was in school, I found out that there's a lot of opportunities here that I didn't have back in Africa.
Having three boys in Nigeria and a wife must have been very difficult. As a military man, he was a major in the army in Nigeria. He could have stayed there and life could have been easier for him. But no, he had bigger plans. He saw the bigger picture. That's one of the reasons why my dad is my hero.
I just wanted the best for my kids, actually. That was my main goal of bringing my kids and my wife here so that they can have a better life.
When we eventually moved here, we get picked up by our dad at the airport and we're all together. I felt complete. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment. It was my mom, my dad, three boys. We lived that way until, my dad continued to work hard as a pharmacist to where now we were able to buy our house, which was over 20-something years ago. All of us brothers, all the boys were blessed enough athletically to where we could play sports at a high level. You come from a Nigerian home. First of all, you want to be a doctor, you're going to be an engineer, or you're going to be a pharmacist. These are the acceptable fields for you to go into. Not an athlete, because that's not a secure future. And once my dad realized that they're going to school, they're still making the grades that I want them to make, he was more okay with letting us explore some of these sports. My oldest brother picked soccer. My little brother, he was a headhunter. He was a football player. He knew that. He wanted to hit people. He wanted to tackle people. And that's where he excelled. I told my father, I said, I'm going to go out for wrestling. And I just remember him saying, what? Like Stone Cold wrestling? I'm like, no, not like that, Dad. I'm not getting hit with chairs.
Who's wrestling? No, Because when he told me about the wrestling, really, I didn't like it.
My dad was very stern, and so I just didn't tell him. Until my junior year. I think my mom is the one that actually caught me because I was wrestling in a city tournament, which was televised. And my mom happened to be flipping through TV one day, and here I was on TV wrestling. And my son, what you do for TV? What were you doing on TV? And I had to explain to her. Towards that senior year, I think that's when my father realized that I was at, because I'm sure she told him. The first tournament that he actually came to, which was the state tournament, he came in and he actually found me.
And when I got there, a lot of folks were asking me, are you Kamaru's dad? Are you Kamaru's dad? And I was kind of ashamed of being so absent from most of his fights.
But they don't understand the dynamic. My dad was always working. My dad was a very, very, very hardworking man. It was ambition that said that, you know what, I need to go study abroad. I need to go to the US to study because I want to make something of myself. Which also led to him saying that I don't just want to work for somebody for the rest of my life. I want to start my own business.
When I got into the ambulance business, I didn't know much about the business. I'm a pharmacist. I bought the trucks. The state came, they certified my company.
His ambulance company was like, I think top 2, top 3 in Dallas.
I was like an investor. Like I opened the business, I owned the business, but I hired the professionals, like the paramedics and the EMTs.
The next step in order to grow it more was to, hire an outside billing company that's gonna come in and bill for you while you're running your company. And so he hired them, and the company were doing things that were on the up and up.
One fateful day, I think they came to raid, they called it Operation Easy Ride or something like that, where they raided about 12 ambulance companies. They came and seized all my ambulances. They froze all my account, basically shutting down my business. And what they were alleging was we were picking up patients that were not qualified. I'm like, how do we know they were not qualified? I mean, they call us and we go pick them up.
And honestly, at that point, my dad's company was big enough to where I couldn't tell you that if he knew what the day-to-day was of each and every aspect of the company.
What my attorney told me felt there was nothing criminal about what we were doing. So she said we should settle with the government because they've spent money in investigating me. So we settled, everybody went about their business. So I thought everything was over with. Until 2 years, 9 months, something, I was out of the business. I was not doing the business no more. I was on my own thinking that everything was over. Early in the morning, I saw SWAT team in my house, banging the door. I came down and said, what's going on? They said, they're taking me downtown. I said, for what?
I get a call from my mom, and she's screaming, she's crying on the phone. I just remember my heart sinking in my chest, like, I thought this was over.
They said that was civil, now it's criminal. I didn't do the billing. Somebody else that was doing the billing, if anything was wrong with the billing, they should have picked up the billing company. But they said where the money was coming to me, I was the one writing the check.
They wouldn't grant bail. I just remember feeling so powerless.
They said that there was even a statement that the billing company made, saying that there was a time they made a mistake in our billing, but they didn't tell me because they were scared that I was going to fire them and hire somebody else.
My dad had a conversation with us and said that, hey, they're offering me this plea deal. When you're an innocent man and they're telling you you got to spend 3 years of your life away from your family in jail, we're not going to take that. And he felt that the justice system would serve him. But one thing he's not realizing is that they've frozen all your assets to where you have no money. He had to take a court-appointed attorney. You can't fight it.
I want to try to give me 15 years.
I couldn't fathom it. I couldn't. Some murderers get less time than that. How do you justify giving him that much fucking time?
Would have been better be dead than going through this. Because when you feel you didn't do, I don't want to be emotional. So I don't even want to think about it. Because that's when I thought my kids really needed me, but it just took me out of their life. And the first time my wife and kids came to see me, that was the day. That was the first day I broke down. I cried, my wife cried, my kids cried.
And seeing my father for the first time, having to go into the facility. At that point, he's just a number in the system. And having him come in and hold his family. And I have to put myself in his reality, that he has to go into a cell. And then for me to have to get in the car and drive away, and he has to stay there. It floored me big time.
He wrote me a letter, said, never let the family see you cry. I still got that letter.
My father was never really there when I was competing as an athlete. But now that they took my father from me to where he couldn't come at all, even if he wanted to, it grew the chip that was on my shoulder.
I talk to my wife like twice a day. And my kids, I try to call them like twice a week, letting them realize that, hey, this is not the end of the world. They should forge ahead, do the best they can.
Being Nigerian, we were already enriched with that strong culture that we had to go to get an education. We had to be able to get a job so we can provide for our families. And that's what my dad continued to push even while he wasn't here. I remember after 2012, I sparred for the first time. I just knew that I was gonna embark on fighting in the UFC. I had to go have a conversation with him about it. And I remember at that time, they had moved my father from the facility that he was in to where now you have to see him through a glass.
So one day he came to me at the jailhouse. Dad, this is what I would like to do. I said, for what? Why you want to do this?
And of course he's like, no, I don't necessarily want you to do it and this and that. So I showed him the clips of me sparring.
I said, well, behind the glass, I told him, if that's what you want to do, you got my blessings.
Personally, it meant a lot to me, but I think it was also still keeping him in the loop and letting him know that he still has a grasp on his family. I moved down to South Florida, working with the Black Zillions down there, and I could always find someone that I can see as that placeholder. The men that I looked up to, like Rashad Evans. And just the way they carry themselves, they all had certain qualities that my father had. Because when those men spoke or when they gave me any advice about certain things, I listened. And then an opportunity presented itself.
The Ultimate Fighter goes to South Florida. Two of the best MMA teams in the world compete.
I remember the last time I visited my father, he told me that their workrooms, they have TVs in there. And he told me, he said that UFC stuff was always on the TV there. And so it was kind of a little extra push for me to commit to doing the show because there was a possibility that my father was gonna be able to see it. I'm fighting for my future, my life, my family's future. I'm fighting for financial security for my daughter.
Who will represent your team for the first fight? Please step forward.
The first fight that Kamaru had was very nerve-wracking for me. The whole prison knew that he was fighting, so everybody was sitting down watching. So I'm like, this is really what my son is getting into?
Ready? Let's do it! Dig under!
And after the fight, you see people coming to hug me. Inmates will come, they will come tell me, say, hey, your son is going to be a champ one day.
The winner is Usman.
I can see a change in my dad. I can see the excitement. I can see life being brought into him.
His fights were the highlights while I was in prison.
I couldn't tell you what it did for me mentally. It was instrumental. And now I'm able to give my father something else to look forward to. And he's able to share with the people that were around him on a daily basis that, hey, that's my son. Fast forwarding my career to where I now signed to the UFC, the first thing that I ask him is my father gonna be able to see this on broadcast TV? That was my only concern. And I tried to make sure that that was there each and every time.
We've seen Kamaru Usman have sensational performances. The question was always, how good is he when he fights the best of the best? We're finding out now.
Everybody knew he was going to fight for the world title. But the unfortunate thing was it was on pay-per-view.
If I could, I would have asked him to put that on broadcast TV. I wanted him to watch that one so bad. Even though he wasn't there physically, I could feel that his spirit was around me.
One man leaves Las Vegas, the undisputed UFC welterweight champion.
Usman immediately moving forward, putting pressure on the champ. Oh, big uppercut.
That got Woodley's attention, now 2 more.
What we were watching was the highlights. The CEOs, correctional officers, were letting us know what is going on.
That's it. We got a new champ, folks.
Africa unite. Kamaru Usman has done it.
Before that night was over with, we saw the breaking news.
When this little girl came along, she lit a fire under me, Joe, and I got going.
The welterweight champion of the world, ladies and gentlemen, Kamaru Usman.
Who's the champion? So Daddy's the champ.
I limped to the bag. While I limped to the bag, it was the first call that my brother was on the phone. Here, talk to your dad.
I shed tears. I cried. When he won the belt, I cried. Then everybody was hugging me and all this stuff. I cried.
The joy that he felt, I could feel it all the way through the phone. And it's a moment that I would never forget for the rest of my life.
Oh, that's really made me even more popular in prison than out here.
What is it like to be the champ? This is fresh for you.
Oh, well, first of all, I just want to say, man, it's such an honor to be here. My father's been incarcerated since 2009. And this is the first time really I'm ever talked about it.
And when is your dad due for parole?
Lo and behold, Great Tesh, the attorney that heard me talk about this through the Joe Rogan show. He was the one who wrote those final letters and made some of those final calls to where it kind of helped expedite the process to where he's like, hey, your dad's gonna be released.
They gave me the date, February the 5th. Actually, it was the beginning of coronavirus. I've been gone for almost 11 years.
I understand what that was, which is why I go so hard as a parent now.
Hey, I didn't even get to see my granddaughter until today. I missed when she was born and her growing up. It was like the day cannot come any sooner. Come on, girl.
Having my father now see my daughter, hold my daughter, love on my daughter, that's the way it should be. Now I get to understand kind of the importance of his presence in our lives.
I've tried the best that I could to raise my kids, and they're now adults. They're raising their own kids. So my main goal, mine is just to raise my grandkids. Just kind of continue the lineage, the legacy of the name Usman.
On behalf of friends and family, I want to thank all you guys for coming out here today to celebrate our housewarming and also to celebrate me and Jessica. Would you make me the happiest man in this house today?
Yes.
To know that he sat down for 10 years and now you just witness your oldest son ask a woman to marry him.
This is my future father-in-law.
I can't even put that into words, what I think that is for him.
It's been a journey, but Glory be to God. I was blessed.
Being a father to me means more than any accomplishment that I've ever achieved, more than any medal or any belt or any achievement that I've ever got. Coming home and seeing him in his house, I didn't cry, but I damn sure wanted to. It means the world to me now that my father's able to see me in the light that he does. How a boy navigated his way through life to restore the glory that his family lost. At that moment, I didn't cry. I was just filled with joy watching this man come back to his home.